We're back with Alden Chodash of AldenBoxing.com. This past Saturday, Alden, it was Kelly Pavlik defeating Jermaine Taylor once again. This time it goes the distance. Do you think Pavlik came in overconfident?
No, definitely not. I think the excuse for Pavlik not getting rid of Taylor, although he had Taylor in trouble on several occasions, is that Jermaine Taylor fought a much better fight than he did in the first fight. He fought much more confidently, and he showed that he came in with a very steady game plan. He cut many of the looping roundhouse punches that cost him a defeat in the first fight, and his combinations were brilliant. So Pavlik beat Jermaine Taylor at his best, and that's a very good accomplishment because Taylor looked very good.
Do you think Taylor, sometimes they say you win for losing. Do you think Taylor won fans, won more respect after this loss?
I think he won respect after the first loss for being such a great fight. This fight was also a very good fight, and he made a much better performance in my eyes than he did in the first fight. And very seldomly did he back up against the ropes, and very seldomly was he hurt with the kind of regularity that he was in the first fight. So Pavlik fought a great fight. Taylor fought a great fight. It was not as meaningful as the first fight, but proved out to be a very exciting fight.
Okay, Taylor, where does he go from here? Do you think he goes back to middleweight and fight an Edison Miranda, for example, or an Arthur Abraham?
Yeah, based on the fact that he only weighed in at 164 in a 166-pound catchweight fight, I think he could make it back down to middleweight without much trouble. Edison Miranda is definitely his sparkling #1 opposition that he'd probably face in one of his few fights back, even after a couple losses in a row. Edison Miranda, I think, would be beatable for Jermaine Taylor.
Okay. What about Pavlik? Of course, Tito Trinidad's name has been mentioned. John Duddy for a fight sometime this summer. What do you think of a Pavlik-Trinidad matchup?
Well, first of all, I think Pavlik should also head back down to middleweight. I think he's much more effective because of his size. He could overwhelm guys with his massive frame. But a Tito matchup would be very exciting. Tito looked good against Roy Jones. He just was probably outsized by Jones. He's not accustomed to fighting at that weight. He probably would be more dangerous with his punching power at this weight. And Pavlik is not invincible to punches. He was almost stopped by Taylor in their first fight in the second round and took some good punches in this fight. So Trinidad probably would or could make an impact with his punches because, you know, the last thing to go that they always say is your punching power.
Okay, and what about Duddy? You think Duddy is on par with Kelly Pavlik at this stage?
No, I don't think so. I think he hasn't been brought up facing the quality of opposition that would be vital for him to take such a huge step up against Kelly Pavlik. And he's not the most talented fighter, but he's not bad. He's just not up the level of Jermaine Taylor or Kelly Pavlik.
Okay. Just briefly on ESPN this past weekend, Delvey Rodriguez beat Troy Browning. Briefly, do you think Delvey Rodriguez we should keep an eye on?
He's improving somewhat. He's exciting. He's definitely not invincible. He has a very weak defense, as Browning proved, and as Jesse Feliciano proved in a big way by stopping him last year in the 8th round. But he's fun to watch, and he's a good puncher. Okay.
This coming weekend on HBO, it's Vladimir Klitschko, Sultan Ibragimov. If you were in Sultan's corner, what would you tell him to do to beat the big man?
I would tell him to fight a fight similar to Corey Sanders. I know he's the smaller guy, but I think he should get Vladimir Klitschko to follow him around and walk into his left hand, because he's not the quickest guy, but he's got some quick and slinky moves up his sleeve.
Meaning Sultan does.
Sultan does. Mm-hmm. And he could surprise Klitschko with a couple left hands, as Corey Sanders did when they fought in February of 2003.
And Klitschko should, of course, keep it a long-distance fight?
Yeah, definitely. That probably is going to be the most likely outcome, is that he beats Sultan Ibragimov on the outside. Ibragimov's not the quickest guy, but he is pretty slick with his moves. And I think he's not a bad puncher, so I think his chances to get Klitschko to follow him around and walk into something.
Okay. Arthur Abraham in late March will be taking on Elvin Ayala, who recently beat Sergio Mora.
Draw.
I'm sorry, it was a draw.
Mora.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Arthur Abraham, do you think he should dispatch of an Alden Ayala?
Yes, definitely he should. He's a strong fighter and a good solid fighter, and Alden Ayala is by far not on that level. I'm very shocked that he's going to get this title shot, especially after losing 2 fights to David Banks and drawing with Sergio Mora, 2 lower class fighters. He's getting a shot. I think he's going to be totally overwhelmed.
Okay. Going back to the HBO broadcast from Saturday, Ronald Hearns, impress you or no?
Not the most impressive fighter, but he's coming along slowly. And as Manuel Stewart frequently said, I'd like to see him fight Julio Cesar Chavez. That'd be a good fight. I think his height would give Chavez trouble. But he wasn't. His endurance was less than impressive, and his all-around boxing skills is decent. But he looks like a guy that's still improving, and he's nothing very special.
Steve Forbes versus Oscar DeLaHoya. Oscar should have no trouble with Forbes?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that fight had to come off. DeLaHoya had to take an easy fight and deserves a win after a couple of just really one devastating loss. Not devastating, but one loss to Floyd Mayweather that wasn't that far from a knockout loss to Bernard Hopkins. He's fighting a guy like Steve Forbes that he really has nothing to win, and he's got a lot to lose because Forbes is dangerous, and I don't think he could pull off the upset against DeLaHoya, but I think he can make DeLaHoya look bad and take off some of the spice to a rematch between Floyd Mayweather and Oscar DeLaHoya, which I don't think is going to be that as much of an attraction as the first fight was anyway. It's nowhere near.
No. Is there a way that Oscar stops Forbes?
He's a lot bigger than Forbes, and Forbes was very unimpressive against Grady Brewer, who's about the size of Oscar DeLaHoya, so there is a chance, and Oscar's left hook can stop a lot of guys right now, even at his stage of his career.
How good was Ike Quartey? He was right up there with the best, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a good fighter. He's a very strong fighter and very arrogant fighter. He thought he could back up a lot of guys. He backed up Oscar DeLaHoya as Fernando Vargas with all the strength and punching power they had. He just that arrogance eventually played against him, and Fernando Vargas outmuscled him. Oscar DeLaHoya beat him in the end, a fight that he could have very easily won, even with the poor 12th round performance. He definitely probably would have got the decision if it wasn't for that 12th round, so he could have done a lot more with his career.
Oba Carr, name from the past. What is your feelings on Oba Carr?
He's just a very solid journeyman fighter. I haven't seen him much. He's fought a lot of guys. He put Trinidad down and won 11 rounds with a prime Oscar DeLaHoya before he was stopped. I think he won 11 rounds also with Tito before he was stopped. And he also gave Ike Quartey a very tough time when they fought.
Okay, you think if Lennox Lewis, we just have one more minute remaining, Lennox Lewis would have quickly rematched Vladimir Klitschko, what do you think the outcome would have, I'm sorry, Vitaly Klitschko, what do you think the outcome of Lennox Lewis, Vitaly Klitschko 2 fight would have been?
Well, the kind of rally that Lennox Lewis was putting on in the latter rounds against Vitaly Klitschko, that he was finally starting to connect with Klitschko, it was pretty impressive on Lewis's part. I think he would come in a lot more prepared for Vitaly Klitschko's punches and his onslaught that he put on display against Lennox Lewis in the first fight. And I think Lennox Lewis, as he did against Rockman, maybe not knock Vitaly out, but he would come in much better, much sharper, and I think he would probably beat him decisively. Okay,
and finally, I forgot to mention the Fernando Montiel performance and Christian Maharis. Looks like kind of a collision course setting up between those two superflies. Who do you like if Maharis takes on Montiel?
Real quick, I think Maharis would beat Montiel because he's a more technically sound fighter, but Montiel is a very good fighter and a good puncher.
So it's close, but you give the edge to Maharis.
Yeah, both look very good in their performances yesterday.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alden, for talking to us. Remember to check aldenboxing.com and fightfan.com for more information. See you next week.